Jack was a simple man, living a simple life. He wasn't a hero or someone special. He was just another worker on the new human colony on the faraway planet of Zorith. Most days, he spent his time fixing machines, repairing buildings, and helping the others who lived there. The colony was still small. Everyone worked hard to make it a place where humans could live peacefully with the alien species around them. But Jack had never expected his life to change. The planet was beautiful, filled with strange alien landscapes, large purple skies, and forests that shimmered with colors humans had never seen before. The people here were different too. They spoke languages Jack couldn't understand, and their technology was far beyond anything Earth had ever developed. But despite all this, Jack found comfort in the routine of his work. One morning, while walking to the repair bay, Jack noticed a group of alien delegates arriving at the colony. They were from the Tholix Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Jack had heard of them. The Tholix were known for their grace, wisdom, and their mysterious ways. He didn't think much of them, though. They were just visitors. But then he saw her. The alien princess, Princess Lyra, stepped off the ship, her presence immediately drawing everyone's attention. She was taller than most humans, with silver-blue skin that seemed to shimmer as she moved. Her eyes were large, glowing faintly with a soft violet hue, and her long hair seemed to flow around her as if caught in an invisible breeze. There was something about her that made Jack feel like he was in the presence of someone important, someone far beyond the likes of him. He quickly looked away, not wanting to seem rude. Princess Lyra's eyes scanned the crowd, and for a moment Jack felt like they locked onto him. She paused, then smiled. It wasn't a smile that made her look friendly, though. It was a smile that made Jack's heart race. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something else too. Power, a mystery that drew him in. As the delegation moved forward, the princess walked directly toward him. Jack froze. He had never expected to be noticed by anyone so important. He had no idea how to act or what to say. He could feel his palms sweating as he stood there, trying not to make a fool of himself. When she reached him, she stopped and looked up at him. Her violet eyes gleamed as she tilted her head slightly. "Are you married or single? Human?" she asked, her voice smooth and clear. Jack blinked, not sure if he had heard her correctly. His brain struggled to process the words. "Pardon?" he asked, hoping he hadn't misunderstood. The princess smiled again, her expression almost playful. "Are you married or single? Human?" she repeated, her voice laced with curiosity. Jack's mind went blank. This wasn't how he thought an alien princess would act. He had expected her to be distant, cold, maybe even regal. But she wasn't like that. She was talking to him like he was a person she could actually have a conversation with. "I'm single," Jack finally managed to stammer, still feeling a little confused. "But, why do you want to know?" The princess's smile widened. "Because I find humans fascinating," she said softly, stepping a little closer. "Your species is unlike anything I've ever seen. There is something about you, something real, not like the other beings in the galaxy." Jack felt his cheeks flush. He didn't know what to say. Was she joking? Or was she being serious? What could someone like her possibly find interesting about someone like him? Before he could say anything else, one of the alien attendants stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "Princess, it is time to proceed with the council meeting," the attendant said. The princess nodded, but before she turned away, she looked back at Jack. "We will talk again," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I am curious about you, human." With that, she walked away, and Jack stood there, completely stunned. The other aliens continued with their business, but Jack couldn't stop thinking about the princess. He hadn't expected to be so, captivated. Was she really interested in him? Or was this all just some kind of strange game to her? He shook his head, trying to push the thoughts out of his mind. He was just a worker on a colony. He was no one important. Why would someone like her, a princess no less, want to talk to him? There had to be some mistake. But as the days passed, Jack couldn't help but feel drawn to the idea of seeing her again. He didn't know what to expect, but he was starting to feel like he wanted to know more about her. There was something about the way she had looked at him, something that made him feel like he was more than just a simple worker. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of their encounter. Little did Jack know, this was only the beginning. The days after that strange encounter with Princess Lyra passed slowly. Jack couldn't help but think about her, even though he tried not to. She was a princess, and he was just a simple worker. He was sure it was nothing more than a passing moment for her. But something about the way she looked at him, the way she had asked if he was single, kept haunting his thoughts. One afternoon, as Jack was working on repairing a communication device, he was interrupted by a messenger from the royal delegation. The young alien, who looked like a humanoid with blue skin and large round eyes, handed Jack a small silver tablet. "This is for you, human," the messenger said with a slight bow. "Princess Lyra has invited you to the royal banquet tonight. Please come." Jack blinked in surprise, staring at the tablet. It was a formal invitation written in a beautiful script that Jack couldn't read, but he understood the message well enough. It was an invitation from the princess herself. At first, Jack thought it was some kind of mistake. There was no way the princess would want to see him again. So maybe this was just some formality, something she had to do as part of her royal duties. But when he looked back at the messenger, the alien was still waiting patiently for Jack's response, as if this was a normal thing. "Are you sure?" Jack asked, his voice unsure. "I'm just a worker here. I don't belong in your palace." The messenger smiled, showing sharp white teeth. "The princess does not care about your status, human. She simply wishes to meet you again. She is curious about you." Jack's heart raced. He didn't know what to do. This was a huge honor, but also terrifying. The idea of sitting among royalty and powerful aliens made him nervous. He wasn't prepared for something like this. But how could he refuse? A chance like this might never come again. I'll come," Jack said, finally nodding. The messenger bowed and left, leaving Jack standing there with the invitation in his hand. The rest of the day seemed to drag on. Jack tried to focus on his work, but his mind kept drifting back to the princess. Why had she chosen him? What did she want from him? He couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting was important, but he had no idea what to expect. When evening came, Jack found himself standing in front of the grand palace, feeling out of place. The palace was a beautiful structure, unlike anything he had ever seen. Its walls were made of shimmering metal, and strange glowing plants surrounded the entrance. The lights from within the palace created a soft, warm glow, and the sound of alien music echoed in the distance. A royal guard, tall and imposing, stood at the entrance. He was covered in silver armor that reflected the lights, his face hidden behind a helmet. When he saw Jack, the guard nodded and motioned for him to enter. Jack walked past him, his steps slow and unsure. As he entered the palace, he was amazed by how much more beautiful it was on the inside. There were grand hallways, strange artwork on the walls, and tall windows that looked out over the planet's surface. Jack felt like he didn't belong here. He was used to simple rooms and basic human technology. But now he was in the heart of an alien empire, and everything around him was foreign. Still, he had come this far, so he had no choice but to keep moving forward. When Jack reached the banquet hall, he was greeted by the sight of dozens of alien beings, all talking, laughing, and enjoying the festivities. He felt out of place among them. There were towering figures with long, flowing tentacles, small humanoids with glowing eyes, and others who looked like they were made entirely of light. Jack had never seen such a variety of creatures before, and he felt small in comparison. But then he saw her. Princess Lyra was standing near the center of the room, surrounded by a group of important-looking aliens. He felt his breath catch in his throat. She was even more stunning than he remembered. Her silver blue skin seemed to shimmer in the light, and her violet eyes were locked onto him. She was beautiful, yes, but there was also something about her that made him feel like she was not just a princess, but something more. She had a power to her that made the whole room feel smaller. When she saw him, her eyes brightened, and she made her way toward him, her steps graceful and confident. The room seemed to quiet down as she approached. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He wasn't sure what to expect, but the way she looked at him made him feel like everything was about to change. "Human Princess Lyra," said with a soft smile. "I'm glad you came." Her voice was calm, but there was a warmth to it that made Jack feel at ease. "You look just as I imagined." Jack swallowed, still unsure of how to respond. "I wasn't sure if I should come. This all feels so strange." Lyra laughed softly, her laughter like music. "Strange? Perhaps. But I wanted to know more about you. You were different from the others. Your simplicity, your honesty there is something that draws me to you." Jack felt his face flush. He didn't know what to say to that. "I'm just a worker. I don't know what you see in me." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch light but comforting. "Sometimes the simplest people are the most fascinating. And sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places." As she spoke, Jack realized something. This wasn't just an invitation out of curiosity. She wanted to know him, not as a human worker, but as someone with his own story and heart. He wasn't sure why, but he felt the same way. Something about her had drawn him in too. For the first time since he had entered the palace, Jack felt like he belonged. The banquet continued around them, but Jack felt as though the world had narrowed to just the two of them. Princess Lyra's presence was magnetic. She moved with grace, like a force of nature, but there was something gentle about her. Despite her royal status, she didn't carry herself with the arrogance Jack had expected. Instead, she seemed curious and open, as if the grand palace around her and the high-ranking aliens by her side didn't matter. All that mattered was the moment, and Jack was the center of it. Jack wasn't used to this kind of attention. He was a worker, a simple mechanic. Spent his days fixing things, never expecting to be noticed, let alone invited to a royal gathering. He felt a little out of place, but Lyra's words made him feel different. There was no judgment in her eyes, no superiority in her voice. She was just talking to him as if he was just another person. "You seem quiet, human," Lyra said, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Don't worry, you don't have to speak if you don't want to. But I do want to hear more about you." Jack shifted. Uncomfortably, unsure of what to say. "There's not much to tell," he said, shrugging. "I work on machines. That's about it." Lyra smiled warmly. "I find that fascinating. You work with your hands, creating something out of nothing. It's rare among my people. Most of us rely on machines to do everything." Jack looked around the room, noticing that most of the guests weren't like him. The aliens here were regal, proud, and clearly not used to doing anything that involved getting their hands dirty. But Lyra seemed genuinely interested in him. She wanted to know what it was like to live without the luxury of technology doing everything for you. And Jack, in turn, found himself more and more interested in her as well. "I suppose you could say I've always been more comfortable with machines," Jack said, his voice softening. "I never really liked the idea of relying on others to do things for me. I don't know... Maybe it's just who I am." Lyra nodded thoughtfully, her eyes never leaving him. "I understand. I've always been told that my people are above such things, that we don't need to get our hands dirty, that we have others to do it for us." She paused, her expression growing serious. "But I don't want to be like that. I don't want to live in a world where I'm too high up to see the people around me, where everything is done for me." Jack could feel her sincerity in her words. There was no pretense in her voice, no act. She wasn't speaking because it was what she was supposed to say, but because it was how she felt, and it made Jack admire her even more. He had never met someone so open. Someone who wasn't afraid to challenge the expectations placed on her by her society. "What do you want then?" Jack asked quietly, curious. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her gaze deep and searching. "I want to experience the world differently. I want to understand how the simple things work, how people live, what makes them happy, what they struggle with. I want to find out what truly matters in life, Not just what I've been told should matter. Jack was stunned. She was a princess, someone who could have anything, yet here she was, talking about wanting to understand the struggles of ordinary people. It was humbling, and it made him want to open up to her even more. "You've already started, you know," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. "By talking to me. Most people wouldn't even give someone like me the time of day." Lyra smiled at him, her eyes softening. "I don't see you as someone like you. I see you as Jack, just Jack, and that's all that matters." For the first time since they met, Jack felt truly seen. Not as a worker, not as a human in a galaxy full of alien species, but as Jack, as an individual. The weight of being nothing special, nothing remarkable, seemed to lift. It was a strange feeling, like a new chapter in his life was unfolding before him. The evening passed slowly, and as Jack and Lyra talked, they began to explore each other's worlds. Jack told her about life on Earth, how humans had built everything they had through struggle and perseverance. He told her about his childhood, about the small town he grew up in, and how he had always felt connected to the simple things. Return, Lyra shared stories about her life as a princess, the pressure to follow tradition, and the loneliness that came with being in the spotlight. "I don't belong in this world," Lyra confessed one evening as they sat in the royal garden, the stars above them twinkling like tiny diamonds. "I've always been told what to do, how to act, but I've never truly felt like I belong. I want to find my own place, my own purpose." Jack didn't know what to say. He had never met anyone who felt like that. She was a princess. Everything she could ever want was at her fingertips. But here she was, telling him she felt lost. It made him realize how much they had in common. They were both searching for something beyond the expectations of their worlds. "I think you do belong," Jack said after a moment, his voice steady. "You belong wherever you choose to be. You don't have to live up to anyone's expectations but your own." Lyra smiled softly. "Maybe that's why I asked you to come here. To remind me of that. To remind me that I can choose." They sat in silence for a while, just enjoying each other's company. The soft rustling of the leaves in the wind was the only sound. For Jack, it felt like the most peaceful moment of his life. He realized that, for the first time, he wasn't just a worker in an alien colony. He wasn't just a simple human in a galaxy full of powerful beings. He was someone who had caught the attention of a princess who wanted to know him for who he was, not for what he could offer her, and maybe, just maybe, he was starting to feel like he wanted to know her in the same way. The days following Jack's time at the royal banquet felt surreal. What had begun as an unexpected encounter with Princess Lyra had grown into something deeper, something neither of them had expected. Their conversations continued, and Jack found himself spending more time with her, learning about her world, her struggles, and her dreams. Lyra, in turn, seemed fascinated by Jack's simple way of life, a life that was far removed from the politics and pressures of her royal duties. But as their bond grew stronger, so did the dangers surrounding them. Jack had learned that being in the presence of a royal meant being watched. Everywhere Lyra went, there were eyes on her eyes that judged her every word and action. And as Jack spent more time by her side, those same eyes turned toward him. The whispers began. At first, they were just rumors, low murmurs that traveled through the palace like the wind. But as Jack and Lyra's friendship grew, the whispers became louder. It was clear to some of the alien aristocrats that Lyra was not acting as a proper princess should. She was, too, familiar with Jack. She spent too much time with him, an ordinary human, and that, in their eyes, was unacceptable. "You shouldn't spend so much time with him, Your Highness," one of the advisors told her, his voice cold. "He's just a human. There are others who would be more fitting for your attention." Lyra felt a sharp sting at his words, but she refused to let it show. She was tired of the expectations placed on her. She had grown up with rules that dictated every aspect of her life. From who she should speak to who she should marry, it was all decided for her. But Jack had shown her something different. He had shown her that she could make her own choices, that she didn't have to be bound by the rules of her royal birth, but not everyone was pleased with her decision to break from tradition. The political tension grew, as Jack became more of a fixture at the palace. Some of the nobles who had long been vying for Lyra's attention and favor saw Jack as a threat. His presence in the royal halls was a reminder of the growing divide between the old way of doing things and the new, more personal path that Lyra seemed to be walking. One evening, as Jack walked through the palace gardens, he was stopped by a familiar figure. It was Lord Calthor, a high-ranking alien noble with piercing red eyes and a scowl that seemed permanently fixed on his face. "You should leave." "A human?" Lord Calthor said, his voice harsh and threatening. "You don't belong here. You're a distraction to the princess. She's better off without you." Jack stood his ground, his chest tightening with anger. "I'm not going anywhere," he replied firmly. "I'm not a distraction to her. I'm just trying to be a friend." Lord Calthor laughed darkly. "Friend? You think you're worthy of that title? You're nothing but a tool? A toy to amuse the princess until she tires of you? You'll never understand the weight of her position. You'll never be part of her world." Jack felt a flash of frustration. "I don't care about her position," he said, his voice rising. "I care about who she is. You don't know anything about her." Lord Calthor's smile faded. His eyes narrowed dangerously. "You should watch your step, human. The princess is mine to protect, and if you keep pushing, you'll regret it." Before Jack could respond, Lord Calthor turned and walked away, leaving Jack standing there, his heart racing. Couldn't understand it. Why were they all so threatened by him? He wasn't trying to take anything from Lyra, he was just trying to understand her, to connect with her. The next day, Jack was summoned to the royal chambers. When he arrived, he found Lyra waiting for him, her expression serious. "Jack," she began, her voice soft but firm. "I need to tell you something." Jack stepped forward, his heart skipping a beat. "What's going on? You look upset?" "I've been hearing the whispers," she said, looking down at her hands. "The others, they don't think it's right for me to spend so much time with you. They think you're beneath me. And they don't understand why I would choose to be around someone like you." Jack frowned. Why does it matter to them? We're just talking. "I thought that was allowed." Lyra sighed deeply, her gaze distant. "It's not that simple. My position as a princess means everything to them. I'm expected to marry someone of high status, someone who will help strengthen the empire. You're not what they expect. They're starting to make it clear that they won't accept this. They won't accept me." Jack's stomach dropped. "You mean they want you to stop seeing me?" Lyra looked up at him, her eyes filled with sadness. "They want me to choose someone else. Someone of their choosing. If I don't, it could lead to a lot of problems, political problems, that could affect the entire galaxy." Jack felt a pang of guilt in his chest. He didn't want to cause trouble for Lyra. But at the same time, he couldn't just walk away. He couldn't pretend that what they had wasn't important. "I won't ask you to choose me over your empire," Jack said quietly. "But I won't walk away either. I care about you, Lyra, and I think you care about me too. If you're forced to choose, I won't stand in your way. But I need you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what happens." Lyra's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She reached out and took his hand. "I don't know what to do, Jack. I'm not sure I can give up what they expect of me, but I don't want to lose you either. You make me feel like I can be something more than just a princess. You make me feel like I can choose my own future." Jack squeezed her hand, his heart aching. "You don't have to lose me, Lyra. You just have to decide what's more important, following the rules or following your heart." As they stood there in the quiet of the royal chambers, both knew that things were about to change. The political pressure surrounding Lyra was only going to grow. And their friendship, or whatever it was between them, was now in danger. But neither of them was willing to walk away. They would face whatever came together. The tension in the palace grew thicker each day. Princess Lyra's position as heir to the throne was more than just a title. It was a responsibility that weighed heavily on her shoulders. The whispers among the nobles had grown louder, and now they were no longer just rumors. They were threats. Jack felt it too. Every time he walked through the palace halls, he could sense the stares, the cold looks that followed him. He was no longer just a worker. He was a symbol of defiance, symbol of everything the royal court didn't understand. It wasn't just the nobles who were watching. Even Lyra's closest advisors were beginning to question her choices. The pressure was mounting. Jack could feel it in the air every time he saw Lyra. She was always strong, always composed, but he could see it in her eyes. She was struggling. And so was he. One afternoon, Lyra sent for him. When Jack arrived at her chambers, he found her pacing back and forth, her eyes filled with worry. The room was dimly lit, the large windows showing the setting sun outside, casting long shadows. Across the floor, Jack, Lyra said as she looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know what to do. Jack stepped forward, concern flooding his chest. What's going on? You look... troubled. Lyra stopped pacing and took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. The council has called for a meeting tomorrow. They want me to choose a suitor. Someone of royal blood. Someone who can help secure alliances for the Empire. Jack's heart sank. He had known this was coming, but hearing it from her made it real. Lyra, the woman who had shown him so much kindness, the woman he had come to care about deeply, was being forced into a decision she didn't want to make. You have to choose, don't you? Jack asked, his voice quiet. You don't have a choice in the matter. Lyra nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. It's not just about me anymore. It's about the future of the entire empire. If I don't make the right choice, it could cause chaos. The nobles are already pushing for a marriage with someone they approve of, and they're making it clear that if I don't choose, I could lose everything. Jack clenched his fists, frustrated. But you don't want that. You don't want to marry someone you don't care about. Lyra shook her head. Oh, I don't. But I have no choice. I can't just throw away everything I've been taught. My family, my duty, it's all tied up in this. I've been raised to think that my role as princess is the most important thing. And I believed it, until now. Jack reached out, gently taking her hand in his. You don't have to choose them over your own happiness. I know it's hard, Lyra, but there's more to life than duty. You deserve a chance to be happy. Tears ran down Lyra's cheeks as she looked at him. And what if I choose you? What if I choose happiness, and it ruins everything? What if I'm not enough to save the Empire? Jack squeezed her hand, his voice firm but kind. If you choose me, we'll find a way. We'll figure it out. You're not alone in this. Looked into his eyes, searching for the strength she needed. For a moment, the world seemed to disappear. There was no palace, no royal court, no expectations or pressure. There was only Jack. Only them. I don't want to lose you, Lyra whispered. You won't, Jack replied softly. I'm right here, not going anywhere. Lyra closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She had spent her entire life following the rules, doing what was expected of her, but now, for the first time, she felt like she had a choice. And the choice wasn't easy, but it was hers to make. I don't know what the right decision is, she said, looking up at him. But I know that if I follow their path, I'll lose myself. I've already lost so much of who I am. Jack nodded. You have to be true to yourself. Don't let them take that from you. The next day, the council meeting took place, and Lyra was expected to present her choice. Jack waited anxiously outside the throne room, pacing the halls. Couldn't imagine the pressure she was under. He knew she had to make a decision that would affect the entire galaxy. But he also knew that her happiness mattered too. The doors to the throne room finally opened, and Lyra stepped out, her eyes calm, but her face set in determination. She walked toward Jack without saying a word. But he could see the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had first drawn him to her. I've made my choice, she said quietly, her voice steady. Jack's heart skipped a beat. What did you choose? Lyra looked up at him, her expression soft but strong. I choose me. I choose my happiness. I choose you. For a moment, Jack didn't know how to respond. He had feared that she would choose the throne, that she would choose the Empire over him. But now, she had chosen herself. She had chosen them. I don't know what will happen next, Lyra continued. But I won't let anyone tell me what my future should be. I'll fight for what I believe in, and I'll fight for us. Jack stepped closer to her, his heart filled with a mix of relief and awe. We're incredible, Lyra. I'm with you, no matter what comes next. The weight of the world seemed to fall away. They didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, it didn't matter. They had chosen each other. That was enough. The days following Lyra's bold decision were filled with uncertainty, but also with an undeniable sense of hope. She had chosen a path that many would never have dared to take. She had chosen to follow her heart, to choose Jack over the Empire's expectations, and it was a decision that changed everything. The first few days after the council meeting were the hardest. Lyra faced fierce resistance from her advisors and the nobles who had once praised her. They couldn't understand why she had rejected the traditional route, why she had chosen a human, someone so different from their expectations as her companion. But Lyra stood firm. She was the princess, and she had the power to shape her own destiny. Jack, for his part, had never imagined that things would be this complicated. He had never wanted to be caught up in a royal conflict. He was just a worker, a mechanic, who had fallen into an unexpected friendship with a princess. But now, he was part of her world, part of a much bigger story that stretched far beyond the borders of their colony. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow across the palace grounds, Lyra and Jack sat together. In the royal garden, lush green plants swayed gently in the breeze, and the air was filled with the scent of exotic flowers. It was a peaceful moment, one that both of them needed after the chaos that had followed Lyra's decision. "I've never felt more free," Lyra said quietly, her voice carrying a sense of relief. She leaned back against the stone bench, looking up at the sky. "For the first time, I feel like I'm living for myself, not for anyone else." Jack watched her, a soft smile tugging at his lips. "You made a hard choice, but I think it was the right one." Lyra turned her head to meet his gaze, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I didn't know what to expect when I chose you, Jack, but now I can see that it's the only thing that feels right. I don't care about the throne, or the nobles, or the Empire. All I care about is what makes me happy." Jack reached out and gently took her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch. "I'm happy too, Lyra. I never thought I'd be standing here in a palace like this with you. But now that I'm here, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to help you find your own path, whatever that looks like." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both of them contemplating the future.
Nice.
There was no going back. The decision had been made, and now they would face whatever came next together. The next day, news of Lyra's choice spread throughout the palace. And though many were shocked, there was little they could do to change her mind. The council had called for a meeting, demanding that Lyra reconsider her decision. They didn't care about her happiness, they only cared about their own agendas, about securing power and alliances. But Lyra wasn't interested in that anymore. She had seen enough of the way things worked, the way people used their positions for their own gain. She had decided that she wanted something different, a life that was her own. When the council convened, Lyra walked into the grand hall with Jack by her side. The room fell silent as the nobles turned to look at her, their eyes filled with judgment and suspicion. They had expected her to give in, to change her mind and return to the path they had set for her. But Lyra stood tall, her back straight, her gaze unwavering. "I have made my decision," she said, her voice strong and confident. "I will not marry for political gain. I will not live a life dictated by your rules. I have chosen to follow my own heart, and I choose Jack." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the room, but Lyra didn't flinch. She had made her choice, and she would stand by it. The head of the council, an elder alien named Master Zoreth, stepped forward. His face was stern, his eyes filled with concern. "Princess Lyra, you are throwing away the future of the Empire. You are turning your back on tradition. Do you understand the consequences of your actions?" "I understand," Lyra replied, her voice steady, "but I can't live my life for anyone else. I have to make my own choices. And if that means stepping away from tradition, then so be it." Master Zoreth's expression darkened, but he said nothing more. The others in the room were silent, waiting for him to speak. But the truth was, they couldn't force her into something she didn't want. Lyra was still their princess. Now she was a princess who had the power to choose her own destiny. Jack stood beside her, his hand still holding hers, offering his silent support. He knew that their journey was just beginning, and the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be those who would continue to challenge them, to try to pull them apart, but they would face it together. Later that evening, after the council meeting, Lyra and Jack sat together again, this time in her private chambers. The weight of the day's events still hung in the air, but there was a quiet peace between them. Lyra had made her choice, and Jack was right beside her, ready to support her in whatever came next. "I don't know what the future holds," Lyra said, her voice soft as she leaned against Jack. "But I know I'm not alone anymore. I have you." Jack smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And you'll always have me, no matter what happens." Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I don't care what the council thinks. I don't care what the galaxy thinks. We'll make our own future, together." And as they sat there in the quiet of the night, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. Their journey had just begun, and they were ready to walk it together.